Well, good morning and welcome to this morning's reflection as we begin another week. Last week we ended with looking at love and the love of God, the overwhelming love of God. But we're going to move into a space of just looking at grace and to what extent grace is a gift. And the way we do that is really by looking at our own sinfulness, our own inability to really lead a life that is devoid of our own selfish ambition and our own selfish desires. And so to start this, we're going to look at Genesis chapter 3 and verses 1 to 7. The serpent was the most subtle of all the wild beasts that God had made. It asked the woman, "Did God really say you were not to eat from any tree in the garden?" And the woman answered, "We may eat the fruit of the trees in the garden. But the fruit of the tree in the middle of the garden, God said, you must not eat that. You may not touch it under pain of death." Then the serpent said to the woman, "No, you will not die. God knows, in fact, that on the day you eat it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like gods, knowing good and evil." The woman saw that the tree was good to eat and pleasing to the eye, and that it was desirable for the knowledge that it could give. So she took some of the fruit and ate it, and she gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate. Then the eyes of both of them were opened, and they realized that they were naked. So they sewed fig leaves together to make themselves loincloths. Something went terribly wrong. And what went wrong is depicted for us in the story of Adam and Eve. Like the actors in a play, Adam and Eve and the serpent enter the stage. As we watch and listen and are drawn into the story, we are confronted with our own situation. It is not that we journey backward in time, but that we look within the depths of ourselves and see there our collective solidarity with the human family. The story is part of our heritage. It's enriched with symbols, poetry, and this story has been told for thousands of years. The stage is set in the Garden of Eden. In primitive blessedness, Adam and Eve dwell there within an innocent state of freedom. All their needs are met. They are in intimate friendship with God, who walks companionably with them each evening. And the one condition that God has given them is that they are not to eat the tree of good and evil. The prohibition regarding this tree represents the danger of going beyond the bounds of their own creaturehood, beyond who God intended them to be. God did not place upon them this condition because he was jealous or threatened that they might compete with him. Rather, God knew that within each individual there exists a great drive for the fullness of mental and physical powers. God knew that the fullness could only come by the acceptance of their own creaturehood and their surrendering to his love. So powerful is the drive toward fullness of self that it holds the potential threat of propelling the human creature into a denial of the truer self, and thereby denying God. The prohibition was an expression of and a protection for the law within the human heart, which holds in balance the tension of the Creator and the creature. The ultimate choice is self or God. Enter the serpent. The tempting question arises through creation itself in the form of the serpent, seen for centuries as a symbol of evil. For the Hebrew people, the serpent personified the dark powers of healing, of sorcery, and of limitless power. Eve and Adam were faced with the choice. So the woman took some of its fruit and ate it. She gave some also to her husband, and he ate it. Then the eyes of both of them were opened. The world they saw before them was not the world they had envisioned. It was instead a world of darkness. They attempted to hide from the presence of God, but in the cool of the day he inquired, "Where are you?" And they were filled with fear and shame, and they blamed each other and the serpent. And so in the last scene, Adam and Eve are expelled from the garden of their innocence. So just for a moment, be still and just come into God's presence. Now place yourself in the garden with Adam and Eve. In your imagination, enjoy the beauty and the fragrance of the garden, of the flowers. Enjoy the sounds of water and the presence of animals. Accompany Adam and Eve as they walk and as they talk with God. Be there. What are they saying to one another? Now imagine the story in detail and follow it through to its completion. Imagine the entrance of the serpent. The disobedience of Adam and Eve. And the consequences. Now imagine Christ crucified and speak in your own words of how for one sin Adam and Eve were expelled from the garden. And yet for us, for you and for me, who have so frequently chosen self in favor of God, and yet we have been spared. How is it that we are lavished with such grace and such love?